On the 11th of September, 2001, the world changed forever. 19 terrorists hijacked 4 passenger airplanes inside the United States. 2 of those planes crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. Another struck the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. military. And the 4th plane crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back against the hijackers. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives that day. The attacks shocked the entire world. For the first time, Americans realized that even the most powerful nation on Earth was vulnerable to terror. What followed was decades of war, fear, surveillance, political division, and massive changes in global security. But what if 9/11 never happened? In another timeline, the morning of the 11th of September 2001 began like any ordinary Tuesday in America. Millions of people rushed to offices, students entered classrooms, airplanes crossed the clear blue sky, and the Twin Towers continued to stand over New York City like symbols of unstoppable ambition. But in this alternate world, something changed at the last moment. A hidden intelligence warning was taken seriously. Airport security stopped the hijackers before boarding.
Get off me!
Flights were delayed. Authorities investigated quietly, and within hours, the world learned that the deadliest terror attack in modern history had been prevented before it could happen. At first, people celebrated the success of security agencies. News channels called it a miracle. Newspapers printed headlines about the day America escaped disaster. But nobody truly understood how deeply history had just changed. Without the attacks of 9/11, the United States never launched the massive war on terror that shaped the next 2 decades. American troops never invaded Afghanistan in 2001. Iraq was never attacked in 2003 under the fear of global terrorism. Millions of civilians across the Middle East never experienced the destruction, displacement, and chaos that followed those wars. Entire cities that were later reduced to rubble might have remained peaceful and alive with ordinary life. In this alternate timeline, global politics evolved very differently. America remained focused mainly on economic competition instead of endless military campaigns. Trillions of dollars that were spent on war could have been invested into healthcare, technology, education, and scientific research. Imagine if even a fraction of that money had gone into renewable energy or medicine. The world today may have advanced decades faster. Without 9/11, airport travel also remained very different. People still walked loved ones directly to boarding gates. Long security lines, shoe checks, liquid bans, and constant surveillance never became normal. Flying felt exciting instead of stressful. The fear of terrorism did not dominate every international airport on Earth. The internet changed too. After 9/11, governments around the world expanded mass surveillance programs in the name of national security. In this alternate reality, privacy remained stronger. Governments found it harder to justify monitoring phone calls, emails, and online activity on a massive scale. Social media companies may still have grown powerful, but ordinary citizens would likely have enjoyed far more digital freedom. The Middle East also followed another path. Extremist groups that later rose from the chaos of war struggled to gain power. Without the invasion of Iraq, the conditions that helped create ISIS may never have existed. Millions of refugees who later fled conflict might never have lost their homes. Europe may not have faced the same migration crisis that changed politics across the continent. Even culture and entertainment would feel different. For years after 9/11, Hollywood movies became darker and more focused on fear, war, and global threats. Superhero stories became more serious, reflecting a world that suddenly felt unsafe. But without the attacks, the early 2000s may have remained more optimistic. Society might have continued believing that the future would only become more peaceful and connected. At the same time, some experts argue that preventing 9/11 may not have guaranteed peace forever. Terrorist organizations still existed. Tensions between nations still remained. Another attack could have happened years later in a different form. History often finds new ways to create conflict. Yet even then, the psychological shock of 9/11 would not have scarred an entire generation. Perhaps the biggest difference would be emotional rather than political. In our world, 9/11 created a permanent feeling of vulnerability. People realized that even the most powerful nation on earth could be attacked in the heart of its greatest city. Fear slowly became part of everyday life. Governments promised safety, but often at the cost of freedom. Trust between cultures weakened. Suspicion grew. The world became more divided. But in this alternate timeline, humanity entered the 21st century with a different mindset. The world still had problems, but it carried more hope than fear. America remained confident without becoming consumed by revenge. Muslims across the world faced less discrimination and suspicion. International cooperation may have become easier instead of more hostile. And high above New York City, the Twin Towers still stood, reflecting sunlight over Manhattan every single morning. Thousands of people who died that day continued living ordinary lives. Some would grow old. Some would start families. Some would change the world in ways nobody could predict. One prevented tragedy could have reshaped everything: wars, technology, politics, freedom, and even the emotions of an entire generation. History often turns on moments so small that people barely notice them at the time. And perhaps somewhere, in another version of our world, September 11 ended as just another peaceful Tuesday.